Hey everyone, thanks for learning to play games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm going to be starting my adventure playing through the very first tutorial mission in a brand new game coming to Gamefound based in the Thinning Vale world. That is Cormac on the Other Side of Midnight. This is a brand new game from Triskelion Games. It is a solo player game that takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour and a half to play and is a dungeon crawling narrative campaign experience. So in this one, I am going to be playing young Cormac, and I have been captured and chained to a wall in a prison, and that's where my mission starts off. I know that I need to get out, but I have to figure out how to do that and get away from my captors. So we'll see how that goes. There are a couple important things I want to point out with this one. So I've played a number of dungeon crawlers in the past, and most of them, as you know, you get in there, you smash everything up, you destroy everything, you look into every corner, trying to get as much loot as possible in a lot of them, where this one, the designer really wants you to think about your decisions and whether or not it's good to poke around and to stick your head where it doesn't belong, as there are going to be certain things in this that you are going to find that you won't be able to handle. And that is part of the learning and replayability with this one, is learning from your mistakes and making better choices as you play through the scenario again, and figuring and finding out all the little secrets that are hidden within there and what kind of changes and implements those will have on your future games. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because as I've played through this one a couple times, I have an idea of where to go and what to do, hopefully, as the tiles and all that are random, so it does add to the replayability. But there are certain things that once you play through them, you're not going to make that mistake again. So I just wanted to point that out as you watch the video. The other cool thing I want to go over real quick is that you're going to hear someone else narrating, as I reached out to the designer of the game and asked him if he would like to read the narratives as I play through these two scenarios. So he is actually going to be the one reading the different narratives, so I hope you enjoy that. And again, as always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so I can continue to grow, be able to produce this content. If you want to get notified anytime I drop new videos, as I'm constantly putting out new teaching videos, playthroughs, unboxings, Kickstarter and crowdfunding coverage videos, and many others, hit that notification bell and that'll let you know whenever I drop new stuff. So let's go ahead and head to the table and we'll see how this one plays.
Under the pale yellow moon of a landscape of gnarled trees and haunted forests, the young boy fled in a dream. He was panting hard, having been running for as long as the dream had lasted, which was as long as he could remember. Memory begins within a dream. It can end in one too. There was no warmth, no safety, only cold and biting wind and the certain knowledge of pursuit. Something terrible was on his trail, and if he didn't outrun it, death would find him. And then, nothing good happens when death comes to market. No man knows the true price of the soul, its value, nor in truth what lies beyond the coil. Perhaps a new dream and a new memory. For now, the boy was running, but something was reaching for him, trying to find purchase. The more he struggled, the more those gnarled and spiked branches tore at him, held him back, until gasping, he knew he was quite entangled. Then the wolves began to howl. In their blood-curdling cries, the boy found at first fear that was then tinged with something else. Longing? The howls seemed distant, but they were closing in alarmingly fast, like a winter storm. An ear-piercing warning seemed to split the night beneath the yellow moon of Dreaming's Hollow, a pit into which the boy had fallen, and was for now snared. That cry, though, both nightmarish and horror-conjured, shattered the confines of the illusory, or cemented them. The boy awoke, certain that the wolves were a warning. Death was coming, and it would arrive with the dawn. Cormac awoke, his mind screaming to alertness. His arms ached like ancient timbers on the hull of a ship which had been tossed about, adrift on tempestuous waters, with sails windswept and rain-soaked. He was all but naked save for a loincloth, and wrestling with the shackles and chains that held him fast to the stone wall in the subterranean dungeon of his captors. He remembered the warning. He had been raised by wolves, to escape before the dawn, or die trying. These heathen men were going to sacrifice him to gods older than pagan. Cormac MacArt had more in mind than suffering such a fate feebly. That was not the way of a man, nor any warrior. You can hear the snoring guard. You know the face of that drunken demon. Know it as though you can see him, spread-eagled in stupor on the other side of the arch. You stop struggling with your chains for a moment, to catch your breath. Listening intently, you hope not to have been overheard. You can see in the crumbling masonry, where your chains run through rusted iron cleats, that it might be possible to yank on them so hard that they could be wrested loose. You also can see a rat bone not far distant in the gloom of the dungeon floor. The flickering light of a torch set into a sconce in the adjoining guard room lends the dungeon an eerie glow. That rat bone might spring the lock on the manacles on your wrists. Then you espy the sharp rock. It is there, as though taunting you, just out of reach. But perhaps, if you try really hard and bite back the pain, you might grab it with one desperate, outstretched hand. That rock might shatter through these ancient chains.
Alright, so moving into the scenario with this one, we have young Cormac, and he has a different set of stats, so you're going to readjust all your different stats based on his young stats instead. And in this scenario, we start off chained to a wall, so we have to determine how to get out of that, and there's a few different options for this. Cormac notices that there is a rat bone that he could potentially use to pick the locks. There's also a rock that could be reachable for him that he could try to use to smash the chains, or he can simply try to use his brute force and rip the chains out of the wall. And he does know that there is a guard in this other room, in the guard room, sleeping at this point, so he has to be a little careful on how much noise he generates. In this scenario, it's going to be played over 6 rounds, and we have to, or Cormac has to keep the noise level below 12. If the noise level ever reaches 12 at the end of the round, that will also trigger the end of the game. So we have to keep that in mind as I get into this. So from there, the next step with this, now that setup is all handled, is to determine what your initial actions are that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my 6 dice and see what comes up. So I have one enemy symbol that will raise the noise level by 1. So now the noise level is 1, as it would start out at 0, but that die does not have a 0 symbol on it. So then that will be put off to the side. Next, I will mark the rest of the symbols that I've rolled. So I have 1 class symbol, I have 2 interacts, and 2 combat symbols. All right, so then from there, I can get into my turn and take those actions how I see fit. So consulting the scenario guide here, let's take a look and see what we need to do for this. All right, so our first option is to perform an interact action, which is going to be, I have 2 of those. So I could do 1 to make a might check. And if I can get 3 or more successes, that means that I get to rip the chains out of the wall, to pull the chains, trying to wrestle them free from the iron cleats on the wall. And if this is done, you'll do this by rolling a might check. So I would get 4 dice to try to pull this off and get 3 successes. So that's a tough test. And I'm going to raise the noise level by 1 for each enemy symbol that I roll during this test. So next, if I want to, I can spend an interact to reach for the rock. And that's a test of 2. And if successful, then I gain the rock card. And I'll raise the noise level by 1 for each symbol. And then the final option I have is to do a class action, and I can spend a class action. So I do have one class action to reach for the rat bone and perform a test. If successful, I get to claim the rat bone. So I'm going to go ahead and try that one. As I have one class action, I might as well spend it to do something. So I'm going to roll, and if I get at least 2 successes on this, then I have found it, or I've been able to reach it. And I did get 3 successes, but I unfortunately rolled 2 enemy symbols too. So I'm going to raise the noise level by 2, so it's already up to 3. So I got to be careful with how much noise I generate. But I did find the rat bone, which is going to help me potentially pick the locks here. All right, so with the rat bone, if you choose to use the rat bone as a lockpick to open a lock, you may re-roll any dice that are initially, or during that initial success that aren't. Let's try that again. So if you choose the rat bone as a lockpick to open a lock, you may re-roll any dice that are not initial successes. And it cannot be used to escape the dungeon, as the lock on the double door is too heavy and strong. So I'll place that off to the side here. And so with that, let's see. To pick the lock, you must spend to interact and roll a hand of dice. The lockpick's lock quality is 3. So let's go ahead and give that a go. So I'm going to spend an interact action to try to pick those locks. I need 3 successes. All right, so I got 4 interacts, a class symbol, and 1 success. So I do have to spend the rat bone in order to pick those locks. So I'm going to keep the 1 success because it's all the ones that failed. So I'm going to get to roll these 5 again. And I got 2 more successes. And it actually doesn't spend this unless I fail that roll. So on this it says, let's see, if you still fail, the rat bone lockpick must be discarded. You can try to claim another, but only should this happen. So I get to keep my rat pick because it was successful in helping me break through the chains. So I have freed myself from the chains at this point, and I still have a couple of combat actions and an interact action. So from there, I have a couple of choices to make. I can simply move out of this room into this room here and start handling some of the guard effects. I could search that room and try to find something of value in there, as I do have 1 interact action remaining. So, but the trick with that is that I am going to generate noise by doing a lot of searching around and whatnot too. So with me being at 3 already, I think I'm going to go ahead and move into the guard room and see what happens with that. So I'm going to spend one of my combat actions as a movement action is an any action, which means I can spend any cube to generate that action. So I'm going to move in here. So when I move into there, the first thing I have to do is a fate roll. So I'm going to roll 2 dice and determine what happens with that. So with the fate roll, let's see here. I got 2 combat symbols. So with those, and I can re-roll one of these results, but right now, with a combat symbol, I may either switch any one of your actions to a combat action, or any combat action to another action type, or sacrifice a combat action to lower the noise by 1. So that could be interesting. And that's a pretty good result, as an interact will drop a trap in there, so I don't really want to re-roll any dice. A class would be great, as that would drop a treasure chest in there, but that's risky and much more unlikely than getting an interact action or even something else. So I think I'm going to leave those 2, and I have to choose how I want to do it, if I want to do anything with them. So I can convert another action to a combat action, or I can switch a combat action to another action, or I can sacrifice it to lower the noise level. So with the first one, I think I'm going to convert this to a combat action, and the second one, I'm going to spend one of these combat actions to drop the noise by 1. So that'll bring it back down to 2 at least. And I do have to read the guard room, so let's go over that real quick.
As you enter this chamber, you see the slumbering guard. A flagon of discarded ale spilled onto the flagstones at his side. He snores loudly.
Place a red die by the search token in the crossroads, set to 4, so that's his health. So that'll be placed in there. Now roll a die. If you roll a combat or class, so let's go ahead and do that. I did not. So if I would have succeeded in that, then he has been snoring so loudly that it has concealed some of the noise you have made. I get to reduce the noise by 1, but I was unsuccessful with that. So from there is a torch in this chamber, and if you do not collect the torch in this chamber will remain lit. All other chambers are in darkness, unless you find an alternative light source or come back for this one. Collect the torch by spending any one action. Roll a red d6 and see how far it has burned. Place this die on the space for the torch card you must collect from the equipment deck. Dial this up at the start of each subsequent hero phase until it is exhausted. You realize that if the guard wakes up, he will raise the alarm when he notices what you have done and that you are gone. You also see the key at his belt. That's the key to the dungeon. You need it to escape this place, and if you try to steal the key without harming the guard, spend an interact to test. On a 3, you'll succeed in getting the key, and you'll raise the noise level by 1 for each enemy result. If you succeed, claim the cardinal key from the artifact deck, and this is a small item. If you choose to attack the guard with the rock or the chain, spend a comment. I forgot to grab the rock. Oh boy. Well, it's a little late now. That definitely is something that I need. So I may want to go back for that. So I may end up doing that, as that's going to give me a +1 to my weapon damage. Each enemy result, while attacking, might normally damage your weapon, but in this tutorial will raise the noise level by 1 per such result. The guard has 4 health, and you're going to dial down for each damage you inflict. If he is alive after you have finished attacking the guard, and it is the enemy's phase, he gets an action. Roll a die, and if he rolls an enemy, he shouts and raises the alarm by 1. If he rolls a combat, he attacks using 2 dice. Should these hit, he's going to deal damage to either your metal, your might, or your health. But if you are reduced to 0, do not go to Twilight. He is trying to subdue you, so instead the scenario has been lost. So yeah, I'm going to spend my last combat action to move back into here so that I can try to gather up that rock during my next phase. So from there, it's going to move into the enemy phase. And since he is sleeping still, I don't think there's anything that happens. Let's see. So in each enemy phase, after exploring beyond the guardhouse, if there are no guards active, all right, so that's not the case. All right, so then this says at the end of each game round, while in chains or before leaving the guard room, roll a single die to see if you make any noise. If you roll an enemy symbol, you walk on shards of broken pottery, which cut your feet, or you see something frightful, which causes you to panic. Either way, raise the noise level by 1. So I'm going to go ahead and handle that real quick. All right, did not roll an enemy symbol, so no effect there. And that'll end the enemy phase. So from there, then this is going to tick up. So we're moving into round 2. All right, so round 2, I'm going to go ahead and generate my pool. Not too bad. Just 1 enemy symbol, so that's going to crank that noise by 1. And then I have 1 class, 1 interact, and 3 combat. All right, so I'm going to spend the interact action to collect the rock. So there's my rock now. All right, so from there, now I am going to spend... I'm going to spend a class to move in there. And I'm going to try to attack him. So I'm going to spend a combat, and then I'm going to check my might, which is 4. And I'm going to roll that to determine damage. And then I get to add +1 for the rock. And nothing. I did get an enemy symbol, so that's going to raise the noise level by 1. So since I was unsuccessful and didn't roll any hits, then the entire attack fails and I won't get to add any damage from the rock. So I'm going to try it again. And let's switch out a couple of those dice and try some of these. Come on, Cormac. Cormac has forgotten how to hit. So that's another fail and and he raises the noise level by 1 more. And I'm going to try one more time, as I really would like to be able to take this guard down. So, and 2 this time, so the guard is down to 1 hit point now, as I was successful and I didn't get any more of those. So that's a plus. But that is the end of my actions. I have nothing left. So at this point, after 3 combat actions, the guard is going to get to go. So let me see where that was here. So if he's alive after you've finished attacking a guard and it is the enemy phase, he gets an activation. Roll a die. And you got an interact. So if he rolls a enemy, he shouts and raises the alarm by 1. If he rolls a combat, he attacks using 2 dice. And should these hit, he can deal it to one of those stats. And then, let's see. A guard who is awake will move one zone towards you if he rolls an interact or class, resulting in this dice. If he reaches you, he gets 1 more roll. He doesn't get to move again. So he's in my room already. So I would say that he gets another roll because he's already in there. Okay. And this time it's an attack. Okay, of course. So from there, that means he's going to roll 2 dice. Correct? Yep. And let's see if he does any damage. And 2. So the guard's much better at attacking than I am. So I'm going to take 2. I'm just going to take him on the... I'm going to take 1 on mantle and 1 on health. And that is the end of the enemy phase. So again, we have to do that check to see if the noise is raised. Nope. So nothing there. And then this is going to tick up now. And there's going to be an effect at the end of round 3, so I have to keep that in mind. All right, so back to my turn. At this point, I've handled all the rest of the stuff. So, all right. So we got 1 enemy symbol again. So that's going to, or wait. We were at 5. Now that there's an active enemy in there, that normally activates the enemy in there. So I have to spend that first. And I'll get 2 combat. I'll get 2 class and an interact. All right, so I have to spend that first, so he is going to activate. Well, I think the guard is going to attack again, because that's usually what happens, so I'm going to handle that. And he got 1 more success, so I'll take it on my health, so that's going to drop me down to 4. So from there, then now I can take my action, so I might as well try to finish him off here, hopefully. Oh my goodness. All right, so that was another fail, but no noise generation. Another combat action. There we go. Oh, now I hit him for a big lot. All right, so he goes down. So now that the guard is defeated, okay, where was that at? So that is, when the guard is defeated, I may take the key at the cost of 1 action. So I'll spend a class action to take the key. So I have the key now. And I can do an interact action to search the body. And a search, I need 2 or 3 successes. And I got 2 successes, and I did not generate any more noise, so that was a very successful check. So I'll get a treasure card. And I found the Druid Stone. So beyond a loose stone, you find a precious gem. This gem is a Druid Stone and is worth 30 gold coins. It glows with a mysterious light. Add 1 success to a combat or test. Discard after use. Okay, cool. So that can be helpful, kind of make or break something. All right, so I have one class action left at this point, and the guard was eliminated. So I could either hold my turn there, or I could try to press on and push my luck. Yeah, I think I'm going to push on because I really I need to start exploring. So from here, then I'm going to choose a spot that I want to explore into. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go straight at this point. And I found a corridor. So I'm going to move into there. Or this is the hall. So with that, I am going to do my fate. So I have a combat, so I could convert an action which I don't have anything. So I'm going to simply spend that to drop the noise by 1. And I had a class action come up. So with that, that is, I can place a chest. So I'll drop a treasure chest in there. All right. So that's pretty cool. And then with that one, that is, where's that at?
If you draw the hall, the barrier to freedom stands before you at the end of a corpse-laden hallway. Bodies of the unfortunate victims of this cult of madmen who captured you and slaughtered so many of your people, presumably including your parents, litter this chamber. They are strewn about everywhere, and you feel sickened.
Perform a mental test of 3 and take 1 attribute damage per point by which you fail. All right, so my mental is right now at 4, so let's go ahead and see how I do with this. Hey, I got 3 successes, so I don't take any damage. If you succeed, you are unaffected and gain 1 corruption. Ooh. And I don't know if I have, well, I think I do. I think these might be the corruption tokens, so I'm going to take one of those. The door can be unlocked with the Chardonnay key, spending an interact action. You may pass through the door using any 1 action. You may sacrifice 2 actions of any type in exchange for them for 1 interact. After you spend the action to pass through this doorway, read Revelations 1.6. All right. So I don't have any more actions at this point, so that is the end of my turn. So from there, now that I've, in the enemy phase, after exploring beyond the guardhouse, if there are no guards active, ignore sleeping guards, and you have explored a new tile, this hero phase, roll a single fate die for each such tile you explored. So I did explore a new tile, so I have to roll one of these, and it is combat. Place a red die set to 4 in the zone furthest from your hero to represent a guard. So he stumbled into the chamber where I was and found out that I wasn't there. All right, so that takes care of that part of it. And now this is the end of the enemy phase, so I do have a trigger. So at round 3, unless Cormac is still in chains, in which case it is at the end of the game round in which Cormac enters the guardhouse. I'm going to make a fate roll on the following table with a single die. I got an interact. You see a bottle lying discarded in one corner. It is of no common grog. For an action, before leaving, collect a potion from the potion deck. Okay, so there is a potion in there, so I'll just place a little eye in there to represent the potion. So that is that. All right, so then it is going to be round 4. And I do have the key, so I could simply just get out of here, depending upon what I roll. So let's generate my pool first. And I got 4 enemy activations. So I'm going to go ahead and re-roll. I have to discard 1 die to be able to do that, and then I get to re-roll all the dice. All right, so that's a little better with only 1 enemy activation. So that gives me a combat, 2 interacts, and a class, and then the enemy activation. Okay, so I did find it now. I missed it before. All right, so it says the hero phase begins. The first step is to deal with any enemy activations you have rolled. So I did have one. So you have two choices available in the tutorial. The first is to increase the noise level by 1 per enemy activation. So I'll go ahead and do that for this one. The second option is to simulate Cormac becoming aware of the noise he is generating. This means sacrificing any actions this round so as to lower the noise level. You subtract your enemy activations for your unspent actions, and the number remaining is the modifier to the noise die. The noise level can never be lower than 0. Okay, so that takes care of the enemy activation. So now I'm over to the actions that I have. So I do have a couple more rounds. So if I feel lucky, I could go out and explore another area and just see what I can find. The guard is going to be moving. Yeah, I'm going to push my luck. So first off, I'm going to do interact to try to pick the, well, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and spend a class to move. And then I will spend, I'm going to spend a combat to move into here. So I found, I believe that's the graveyard. All right, so I got to do the fate roll first. So let's see what happens with that. All right, so I have a combat and that. So again, with that one, so that one lets me switch one of my actions. And then the class action is a chest. So there is another treasure chest in here. So that's cool. All right, and then that is the graveyard.
The light of the moon filters through a hole in the ceiling to this sinister garden where no flowers bloom. Then you catch your breath as you realize it is no garden after all. This is a burial ground, and the earth is soaked in blood. You see a trap door in the middle of the ground, and you see a piece of wood placed across it, anchoring it closed. Is that a pounding you hear? With horror, you realize someone is buried alive, immured below the door in a burial pit.
You may spend an interact to remove the obstructing piece of wood. If you do so, read Revelations 1.2. So I do have 2 interacts. Sure, why not? Let's go ahead and check it out. So I'm going to go to Revelations 1.2. So I'm going to scroll down here.
As soon as the wood sealing the trapdoor is removed from place, the door flies open. A maddened, wretched, half-starved creature flies out of it, all long, sharp nails, wild eyes, and hisses.
Perform might check. So I'm going to roll 4 dice. I need 1 success. I got 1 or 2 successes and 2 interacts. If you pass, you catch the creature and until calm returns to it. If you fail, you take 1 attribute damage to your health, might, or metal, and the creature flees before you even get a good look at it. So if you succeeded, continue to Revelations entry 1.3.
The wild thing from the pit is no wild thing. The trapped creature is a wastrel child like yourself, and a girl. Her crazed eyes glinted with malice, but now she seems subdued. "You rescued me," she says simply. "Stop exploring pits in the ground and get out of here. If they find you, they'll rip out your eyes and feed them to you." She admonishes. Is she ungrateful, or trying to make you feel guilty for helping her? She is not of your people. You are pretty sure your people and hers don't get on. They might even kill each other. "You're right," you say, realizing the truth in it. "Go your own way, stranger. We have more chance of escape by splitting up. One of us might get out of here, With luck, both of us. She scowls at you. Your people killed my brother. Die in the pits for all I care. She seethes, but does not turn violent. She simply flees.
Roll 3 dice. If you generate any combat or enemy results, lower the noise level by 1 for each such result as you hear the guards going after the girl, never knowing her fate. So 3 dice. And each die that I get an enemy or combat, I get to lower the noise. There's an enemy and a combat, so I get to drop it by 2, so it's back down to 3 now. Not too bad. All right, that is that. So from there, I can continue on. I do have 1 interact action left, so I could try to pop that chest at this point. So yeah, let's go ahead and try that. So I'll spend my interact action to try to open that chest. And I'm going to try to pick the lock. All right, so I got 3 successes, which is enough, and 1 enemy symbol, so it did generate a little bit of noise there. So the chest is open, and I get a treasure card. So I found another druid stone. Okay, so I got a pair of stones. And that is the end of my turn. So then it moves into the enemy phase. All right, so during the enemy phase, the guard is going to activate. All right, so he's going to roll a die, I think. And it's interact, which means he's going to move. Let's see. A guard who is awake will move 1 zone towards you if he rolls an interact or class action on his dice. All right, and he did not reach me, so he wouldn't get an extra action or another roll. All right, and then that's going to tick this up by 1, so we're into round 5 now, so things are starting to get a little close. So it's back over to my turn, as I did explore, but there is an active enemy, so I wouldn't have to resolve the end of the enemy phase. Yeah, because that only happens if there is no guard to activate. Okay. So my actions is 2. All right, so 1 enemy. So I'll raise the noise level by 1. So we're at 5. I have 2 combat, 2 class, and an interact. So now the question comes, I do want to make a break for it. I could go after, I don't think there's much of a benefit in going after the guard. So I'm going to spend 1 combat to move and another combat to move into there. I do have 1 interact action, and then I do have the 2 other actions. So may pass through the door using any 1 action. You may sacrifice 2 actions of any type to exchange them for 1 interact. After you spend an action, you can pass through the doorway. Okay, so I'm going to spend the 2 to create another interact action. I'm going to spend 1 of those to try to open that chest. And I got 1 success, so I'm going to spend 1 of these to a combat or test. So I'm going to spend 1 of the stones to succeed in that test, and that will open the chest up. So that gets me, and I did have 2 noise, so that's going to put me up at 7. And I found moss. So this restores a health, remove bleed condition, discard after use. All right, and then the second interact action, I will spend to open those doors. After you spend an action to pass through this doorway, read, that's just to open the doors. Okay, so I'm going to have to go 1 more round. All right, pushing it right to the limit. That's what I like to do. All right, so that moves into the enemy phase. So the enemy is going to activate. So let's go ahead and roll the enemy die. And it's interact, so he is going to move in. Now he's in my space, he is going to roll again. And it is a combat, so he is going to attack. All right, and he got 1 success and a crack and an enemy symbol. So I think the enemy symbol generates a noise, and the attack will raise. It can either drop one of those stats, or I'm going to just take it on the health. All right, so that is the end of that phase, and we're into phase 6. So this is it. What all I need is one action basically to move out of here. All right, so that's good. I didn't roll any enemies, and I got a pair of each. So 2 combat, 2 interact, and 2 class actions. All right, so at this point, I might as well have some fun with this. I have that potion, but I think that went away when I left the room. So I'm just going to say that this is gone, because I believe that it did say until I leave the room. That would, I think that just vanished. I lost track of where that was. All right, so I do have the 2 combats. I could try to take the guard out. Get myself a little bit more combat experience. Sure, why not? Let's go ahead and have some fun. All right, so I'm going to spend the 1 combat to try to attack the guard. And this room is dark, which I'm trying to remember. I think it requires all the successes I get, I have to reroll. So this could be very challenging. All right, so I got 2 successes. I did have a noise generated there. So I'm going to reroll those. And no successes on that. So I failed that check. I'll try a search action. There's one success. It does raise it by 1 more. All right. Well, apparently the dice are telling me I am trying to be too greedy. So I'm going to spend a class action and move out of there. So I'm going to go to Revelations 1.6 as I've left the room.
Cormac McCart tastes the cold air of freedom as the doors to the slave pit give way to scenes of the enemy camp by night. There don't seem to be any sentries, and the sound of drums emanates from the middle of the camp. Who are these reavers? And where have they taken him? Cormac knows not. Heading for the tree line beyond the camp, you keep low and remain vigilant, darting from hut to hut, until finally you can make a break for it. In that moment, you hear the drums stop. Men are shouting in your wake, and a horn sounds. Dogs can be heard. Then, a solitary scream pierces the night in your wake, and you see a search party gathering.
You have a choice. If Cormac runs into the Nightmare Forest, play Tutorial 2, The King in the Crypt. If instead Cormac flees into the high places on the mountain trail, play Tutorial 3, The Reaper's Hollow. Well, I was able to make it out of there fairly successfully. I didn't take too much damage on my different attributes, and we'll see what happens from there. So I do have a couple of different choices to make, and I'll figure out. I think I'm going to be heading into the woods to play that second tutorial, which I'll also be posting up here shortly. So I hope you found the video helpful in learning more about this game and whether or not this is one you want to back on Gamefound. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them, or swing by the Gamefound page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you and are more than happy to answer any questions you have. And until next time, I'll see you later.